Welcome to the Invite Health podcast, where our degreed healthcare professionals are excited to offer you the most important health and wellness information you need to make informed choices about your health. You can learn more about the products discussed in each of these episodes and all that Invite Health has to offer at www.invitehealth.com/podcast. First-time customers can use promo code podcast at checkout for an additional 15% off your first purchase. Let's get started.
You eat food for energy. And, basically the body runs on digested sugar and oxygen. That gives you all your energy, your oomph, your get up and go. But how you get those sugar molecules matters. Some foods give you a quick burst of energy. And then there's a problem because that can lag very quickly. Others fuel you up for much longer. It's good to know the difference. So welcome to my episode, Foods for Energy. Hi, my name is Jerry Hickey. I'm a nutritional pharmacist. I'm also the senior scientific officer over here at Invite Health. I've been doing nutrition and pharmacy for forever, since before the flood, antediluvian. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Invite Health podcast. You can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts, or visit invitehealth.com/podcast. By the way, I love doing these episodes. Please make sure you subscribe. Please leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. The information on this episode is linked at the episode description, so let's get going. So whole grains would include whole wheat, brown rice, and oatmeal. They can fuel up your energy for a much longer time than simple carbohydrates. The reason for this is they contain fiber, and this slows the absorption of the sugar molecules, and it evens it out. So this gives you a more sustained source of energy. Now, I said oatmeal, not the instant kind, because with the instant kind, they remove the fiber, and it's basically just a bowl of sugar. Whenever you're buying a cereal or oatmeal or something, always check the fiber content. You want a pretty good fiber content. That tells you it's real. Now, simple carbohydrates like white bread, crackers, and candy, they lack fiber. The sugar hits you all at once, basically. So you may get a quick burst of energy, but then insulin is getting released at a fairly high concentration, so your blood sugar quickly drops, and you may feel sluggish after a short amount of time. So this would include sugary drinks, even some fruit juices. It certainly includes sodas, most sport drinks, and energy drinks. Now, caffeine. Caffeine is the number one most researched drug in the world. The caffeine content of a cup of coffee will definitely promote energy. However, too much is toxic. If you have too much caffeine, it can make you anxious, nervous, it can make your heart race, and it certainly will raise your blood pressure. The first few days you have a cup or two of coffee, it can raise your blood pressure. But after a few days of having a couple of cups of coffee, that effect goes away. It doesn't happen anymore. So if you're going to have coffee and you're going to have two cups a day, stick with 2 cups a day. I mean, coffee does have some benefits. It's been shown to help protect your liver. It probably lowers the risk of developing diabetes. It seems to protect breast tissue and lower the risk of HER2-type breast cancer, HER2 new breast cancer. In fact, older people who are sluggish, I'll tell them, make a cup of coffee twice a day, like breakfast and lunch. It'll give your brain some extra pep. It's not a bad thing. But you have to drink it soon after you perk it. Otherwise, the great antioxidants like the caffeic acid will just disintegrate. They'll decay, they won't help you, because you could get a lot of antioxidants from a fresh cup of coffee. Now, water. Water does not give you energy. How could it? It doesn't have any calories. But if you don't drink water, your brain will get tired, and it's harder to think, and you could feel fatigued. In fact, there's been studies that school kids, like kids in the 5th grade, 6th grade, if you give them a break with water, they do better in school. Alcohol. Obviously, it makes you drowsy when you drink during the day. If you drink it at night, it's going to feel easier to fall asleep, but it doesn't help you sleep for long, because alcohol reduces the release of melatonin. Because alcohol reduces the release of melatonin, the sleep hormone. So you may fall asleep pretty easily if you're drinking like on a Friday or Saturday night, but you could wake up at like 3 in the morning and not be able to get back to sleep, or just have a terrible night's sleep to begin with. So alcohol also leads to snoring and makes your sleep apnea worse if you have it. And alcohol can raise your blood pressure. Initially it lowers it and then it raises it. Alcohol is a weird thing. So you're going to be tired the next day from alcohol. Fried foods. When you fry foods, it's at a very high temperature, but there's a lot of oil or lard used. And when you use those kind of fats, that kind of high fat content can make you feel drowsy during the daytime. Listen, fried foods are terrible for your colon. They increase the risk of colon cancer. They're not good for your brain. They increase the risk of memory loss as you grow older. And your heart is not happy about you eating fried foods. So try to contain that and don't have fried foods very often. A huge meal. You're going to a wedding or something. And you're not drinking, but you get sleepy. The reason you get sleepy when you eat a big meal is your blood is rushing to your digestive tract to aid digestion, and it could take some of the blood and oxygen from other parts of the body. So there are specific foods that give you energy. We mentioned coffee. Cocoa. There's a hierarchy of ingredients in cocoa that are good for your brain. Let's go through them. There's salsolinol, kind of mediocre for brain health. There's phenylethylamine. It's an alkaloid that makes you feel loved and part of the major organism, so you feel useful. You're not a tool. However, the methylxanthines and the flavin-threols. Flavin-threols are a polyphenol. They're very good for your heart and circulation. They help get blood up to the brain. They relax. Well, they help push the blood vessels open. We used to call it relaxing, but it takes a lot of energy to push your blood vessels open, so more blood reaches your brain, and your brain is happier. But then there's the methylxanthines, which are kind of like cousins of caffeine. They're cousins of caffeine. And the methylxanthines in cocoa are theophylline and theobromine. They don't make you hyper. They make your brain sharper and more energized and more aware, but the beauty of it is cocoa does not raise your blood pressure. That's due to the unique chemistry of cocoa. So, and we're talking real cocoa here. We're talking like a nice, high-quality cocoa that's sold as a supplement, because when cocoa is sold as a supplement, they have to check it for contaminants. Green tea. Green tea actually has 4 ingredients that wake you up without causing nervousness and not raising your blood pressure. There's a little bit of caffeine, just a little, but nothing like coffee, but it gives you a little bit of a nice edge. There's the methylxanthines that you get in cocoa, the theophylline and theobromine, that make the brain more aware and energized and sharper without raising your blood pressure. And then there's a polyphenol. There's actually a group of about 20 polyphenols, but the major one is EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate. It's known for protecting the heart. It's known for lowering the risk of several cancers, more than likely colon cancer, prostate cancer, breast cancer. It helps build stronger bones. It helps improve the effects of exercise on burning fat and improving muscle accretion. The thing is, the EGCG also tends to wake you up. It gives you energy. A number of polyphenols improve brain energy and physical energy. Now, instead of milk, try adding a little bit of lemon to your green tea, because the green tea improves the absorption of the polyphenols and helps protect them, like the EGCG, and helps protect them from your digestive juices, so you absorb more of them and they're intact. There's a 5th ingredient in green tea known as L-theanine. L-theanine, it's an amino acid, but unlike other amino acids, it doesn't build body tissues. Instead, it works mostly in the brain. It starts out in the roots of the tea plant. The tea plant is called Camellia sinensis, very early in the spring, when there's still kind of like ice on top of the streams. And it migrates up to the buds. And there's always a little bit in the green tea. The problem is, and it's really not a problem, it's a good thing, when the sun hits the leaf, it converts the L-theanine into the polyphenols that protect the heart, lower the risk of cancer, and build stronger bones, etc. So it's not a loss. But the theanine calms you down. The theanine calms you down, and it's one of the reasons why green tea does not raise your blood pressure. The theanine calms you down and helps you focus. It even helps improve your ability to be creative without making you sleepy. Now, beyond the foods, there's some energy-producing vitamins and related nutrients and some herbs. So let's go into that. All catabolic, like burning energy, and anabolic, body-building type of activities, like healing, etc., require B-complex vitamins. There's 8 B-complex vitamins. They're water-soluble vitamins, so with few exceptions, you need to obtain them daily in your diet. You can store a little bit of B12, and you can make a little bit of biotin in your intestines. But every one of the B vitamins is needed for physical energy and brain energy. And there's so much research on the B vitamins. But a tip, if you're going to buy a B complex, especially if you're older, make sure it's not folic acid. That's a synthetic form of B vitamin. You want the active form, methyl tetrahydrofolate. And the reason for that is a number of people are not capable of taking the synthetic folic acid and converting it into the active form, which is methyl tetrahydrofolate. Methyl tetrahydrofolate, the active form of folate, has been shown to reduce homocysteine in the brain and greatly reduce the risk of Alzheimer's in people who would otherwise be at risk for elevated homocysteine levels. Homocysteine is a byproduct of protein metabolism. And the folate is very important for heart health, keeping your arteries clean in your heart. But it also helps reduce the risk of the first two steps of the cancer process, initiation and promotion. I wrote a book with a medical doctor called Dr. Mitch Gaynor, who was the director of the Strang Cancer Prevention Center in Manhattan. He was also on the board for approving chemotherapy in Cornell and Columbia University medical centers. And we wrote a book together on lowering the risk of cancer. And back then we knew that lacking methyl tetrahydrofolate increased your risk of cancer. He broke cancer down to 4 easy steps to understand. Initiation, like something triggering the start of damage to mutating the genes inside your chromosomes. So that could be radiation, it could be a virus, it could be a drug, it could be the sun's ultraviolet radiation. So there's initiation and promotion. Something else promotes it towards the cancer process. Then it becomes cancer, then there's metastasis. So initiation, promotion, cancer, and metastasis. The 4 steps. Metastasis is when the cancer is spreading around the body, when it becomes very difficult to treat. Without methyl tetrahydrofolate, you can't prevent the first 2 steps. So these B vitamins are very important. They're very important. Now, ginseng. I have a systematic review and meta-analysis here from the Mayo Clinic, but it's not the Mayo Clinic up in Rochester, Minnesota. It's the Department of Nursing Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, Arizona, and the Division of Integrated Medicine and Health Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale, Arizona, and then a couple of other academic research institutions. But they basically turned around and said, hey, Panax ginseng is very promising. They reviewed 10 human clinical trials. Panax ginseng, also known as Asian ginseng, Chinese ginseng, Korean ginseng, is very safe, and it helps with fatigue. It can even help with fatigue. Other research shows it can help with fatigue after cancer treatment. Rhodiola. Besides Panax ginseng, and just a tip on Panax ginseng, it needs to be aged for at least 5 years before it can help with energy and endurance and stamina. It's also a great stress buster. So for instance, when I use Panax ginseng, I get one that's hydroponically grown that's over 10 years old. So it has a lot of ginsenosides to really help you with fatigue and energy and help you handle stress. So that's Panax ginseng. Then there's a ginseng. It's not really a ginseng, but it was used like ginseng by the Vikings. Up in the Nordic countries, they call it Viking Ginseng. It's Rhodiola rosea. Now, the Vikings, they were loaded with helminths, worms. They were loaded with worms. They were infested with worms. They lived in a place where it was hard to farm. They had a really short summer where it was sunlight all day long, and a very long winter with a lot of nighttime. And they went on these long voyages. So they had an exhausting, I wouldn't want that life. They had an exhausting life, stress-filled life. And they used rhodiola to get them through it, Rhodiola rosea, the root of the plant. It gave them energy. It helped them with endurance. It helped them with stamina. It helped them with their strength. It helped them fight stress. It helped their immune system to withstand infections. And everywhere where the Vikings went, rhodiola followed them. So when the Vikings went to Siberia, they brought rhodiola. When they went to Scotland, when they went to Ireland, when they went to Iceland, and of course when they went to northern Canada, they brought rhodiola along with them. So you could get rhodiola from Siberia, or you could get rhodiola from Scandinavia, or it doesn't matter. It's all the same plant, and it pretty much is equal in its effects. But there's quite a few studies showing rhodiola helps with physical and mental fatigue. For instance, they studied, unfortunately, sadly, it was soldiers from China, don't get mad at me if you're Chinese, who were in Tibet, because they went into Tibet, and they were living at a very high altitude, and the rhodiola was helping them adjust to the super high altitude. They weren't used to that high altitude. There was a more impressive study to me, and young men. I forgot which military school it was. One of the military schools down south, one of those really tough military schools, and they put them on rhodiola, and it helped them academically, it helped them physically, it helped them mentally. I mean, it really meant something. It helped them handle the stress of getting through. They did a study on young residents in a hospital. Now, in those days, this is going way back, decades ago. In those days, they really abused the residents. After they did their internship and they were doing their residency, the young people getting their medical degree, their license, etc., they would work them 24/7. I mean, these poor souls were grabbing an hour's sleep or 2 hours of sleep here and there wherever they couldn't cat naps, and they just kept on working. But when they gave them rhodiola, it helped them out. And a very recent study, people with burnout syndrome, in Europe they believe in something called burnout syndrome, which is of course temporary, because once all of that overactivity is gone, you could get past being burnt out. But people who were like burning the candle at 3 ends, not just at 2 ends, maybe they were taking their kids to soccer and they were working 2 jobs and they were studying to become a doctor, who knows. When they gave them rhodiola, within 2 weeks, they got rid of the mental and physical fatigue. They felt much better. It helped them feel again. When you get burnt out like that, you start to feel alien to everything. Like you don't recognize other people's pain, and you're not recognizing emotions. You're just totally burnt out. It happened to me in pharmacy school because I was also working almost full time at night. Oh, I did feel burnt out. So rhodiola and Panax ginseng and B vitamins help energy. So does an herb called Siberian ginseng, which is Eleutherococcus synthecosus, but we're not going to go into that now. So does another herb called American ginseng, which is Panax quinquefolium. They all help with stamina and energy. Now there's a couple of supplements you don't know about, possibly. One is Alcar, acetyl L-carnitine. Here's archives of gerontology and geriatrics. Gerontology and geriatrics is focusing on the health of elderly people. So it's 100 people between the ages of 71 to 88. They gave them out, they were fatigued. All of them were physically and mentally fatigued. They gave them Alcar or they gave them placebo, and there was no two ways about it. There was an absolute improvement in mental fatigue, like the level of mental fatigue, improved energy. They were actually becoming energetic. Physical fatigue, they were actually becoming physically more energetic. They were functioning better. Cognitive function was improving, like giving them tests. They were doing better on tests, etc. So it really meant something. Also, then they put them into exercise programs, and they found that on the Alcar, there was less fatigue after the exercise. It was for a shorter time, and it was to a lower degree. And their sleep disorders improved. That's a very interesting thing. Alcar stands for acetyl L-carnitine. It does a bundle of things in the human brain. In fact, I've done a number of episodes on Alcar, ALCAR. That's an accepted abbreviation. And it helps prevent the death of brain cells. It's one of the rate-limiting factors for creating a neurotransmitter in the brain called acetylcholine. Acetylcholine allows you to learn and remember. It helps you create glutamate and GABA. You need glutamate to energize the brain and GABA to even out the energy so you're not hyper. But all three of them, acetylcholine, glutamate, and GABA, are needed to learn something and then to recall it months later. So Alcar does a bunch of things. Plus, it's kind of like a delivery truck, a pickup truck. It picks up energy and brings it inside the brain cells. So Alcar does a lot of things in the brain. So I'm not surprised that it would be effective in restoring energy, physical and mental energy to elderly people. It's something I take on a daily basis because it's amazing for the brain. There's been a bunch of studies actually on Alcar, how it lowers the risk of Alzheimer's disease. It's a very interesting supplement. It's a very safe supplement to take. Then there's one called Ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is something else I take. I'm a 67-year-old guy, so I take certain things that you don't need when you're 40 or 30. So I take Alcar, I take Ubiquinol. Ubiquinol is the active version of coenzyme Q10. Once you hit the age of 40, your ability to convert CoQ10, which is actually ubiquinone, into the active version of CoQ10 called ubiquinol starts to falter. You're not as good at it anymore. Now, At between 40 and 49, it doesn't matter that much. You're only losing that ability about 1% per year. That's the rate of loss. So by the time you're 49, you've lost 10%. But then it accelerates in your 50s. Now you're losing 2% of your ability to convert CoQ10 into ubiquinol per year. So by the time you're 59, you've lost 30%. Now it's making a difference. So I tell people generally at about the age of 55, instead of taking CoQ10, switch to ubiquinol. It'll be a lot better for you. It's easier to absorb. It's easier to utilize. It's already active. So ubiquinol gives your brain energy. Ubiquinol gives your muscles energy. They've even studied in Olympic athletes, and it gave them better times. I mean, this stuff is real. But in older people, it keeps you going. It gives you that extra energy you need to go outside and be active and get healthy and be social, etc. It really means something. But it's very important for the heart because the level of ubiquinol drops dramatically in your heart, and the highest concentration in the human body is in the heart because the heart's beating every second. It's beating every 3/4 of a second, about 100,000 times a day, a little bit more than that. So it needs a lot of energy. So when ubiquinol drops in the heart, it puts a lot of stress on the heart. It becomes dangerous. So ubiquinol is the active version of coenzyme Q10. It allows you to use oxygen and calories for energy. That's what it's doing. So here's the journal Nutrients. This is Osaka City University Center for Health Science Innovation in Japan. Riken Compass Life Research Complex in Kobe, Japan. The Department of Medical Science and Fatigue, Osaka City University Graduate School of Medicine. Okay, so it's prominent places in Japan that do great research, great academic research institutions. Double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled study. It's a state-of-the-art study. They're looking at ubiquinol versus placebo in healthy adults with fatigue. They get, and this is for 6 months. They gave them either 100 milligrams of ubiquinol. They wanted to test the second dosage, so they gave them 150 milligrams of ubiquinol to some of them, and others they gave placebo. And he found there's no doubt about it. In both potencies of ubiquinol, levels of fatigue improved. And so does sleepiness. Sleepiness improved, daytime sleepiness. It really meant something. Ubiquinol does create energy. There are nutrients that create energy. So it matters what you eat. If you're going to eat a poor diet, if you're not going to eat your complex carbs, whole grains, it's just a little more difficult to hold on to your energy. I'll tell you one other trick with energy. You need the mineral magnesium. The energy you're making in your cells, all your energy basically, is something called ATP, adenosine triphosphate. It releases a phosphate group. It becomes adenosine diphosphate. That phosphate group gives you the energy. It's kind of like lighting a match, basically. The thing is that all of that ATP would burn itself out in seconds unless it's attached to magnesium, the mineral magnesium. Magnesium stabilizes your daytime energy. About 70% of Americans do not get sufficient magnesium in their diet. Now, magnesium does a whole bunch of things. You need it for daytime energy. You also need it to sleep at night because you don't release melatonin unless you have sufficient magnesium. Melatonin is released from a little gland in kind of like the middle of your brain called the pineal gland when it's starting to get dark, and it sets you up for sleep. It does a lot more than that. You may want to listen to some of our episodes on melatonin. In any event, so magnesium, 200 milligrams a day, magnesium glycinate, the best absorbed magnesium you can ever purchase. 200 milligrams is plenty because you are getting some from your food. So take that magnesium, see how you feel. Get a good multivitamin with the active forms of folate in it, methyl tetrahydrofolate. And you might want to get the active form of B12 in it too, called methylcobalamin. You'll feel a lot more energy just from doing that and eating a better diet. And getting enough sleep, getting some exercise are all important. Thanks for tuning into the Invite Health Podcast. You can find all of our episodes for free wherever you listen to podcasts, or visit invitehealth.com/podcast. Please subscribe. Please leave us a review. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Invite Health. Hope to see you another time on another episode of the Invite Health Podcast, and thank you so much for listening.